Hello, everyone. One quick ask. If you wouldn't mind going to the iTunes podcast area and giving us a rating and maybe a little bit of a review, that would be awesome. It really helps out the show, boosts everything to where more people can see what we're doing. Thank you. All right, so we are here in Bali filming the intro of our episode with Nick and Maya. Nick and Maya are two of Taz's friends. Maya's a friend from grade school, right?
Like primary school?
Like primary school, just like super young. And Nick is her husband. This is an episode we filmed in South Africa. They are two awesome people. Enjoy the show. But let's now talk about kind of update on where we're at currently. So we're in Bali. We just spent 8 weeks in South Africa. Mm-hmm. And I would say we are both super tired. I think that's more just because we had like a 13-hour travel day where we didn't... No, it was even longer than that.
It was long. Yeah, it was like 15 hours.
Yeah.
It felt like 24, but I think it's because of the time change.
Yeah, it was like a time change, then we didn't sleep the whole next day.
We didn't sleep that whole day, I think.
No.
I think that's catching up with us. I think just the time change just kicked our butts for this one. We haven't had that this whole trip because we've slowly gone across the world, but this one was dramatic. Dramatic,
yeah. But let's just say it was a great experience in South Africa. Mm-hmm. Not gonna lie, I really enjoy the culture. I enjoy the food. I enjoyed the environment. It's definitely a place that if you've never been or you have no plans of going, you should change that and switch it up and try to go to South Africa, right?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Why don't you say, let's have the question be like, what is one thing you're currently thinking about? I can start if you want.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm currently thinking about a bit how important fitness is to us being parents. I kind of get by through a previous history of working out, but we spent that bit of time in South Africa going to local gyms and training at the gyms and bringing the kids, and it was such a fun experience, and the kids loved every minute of it, and I felt so much better. And then the first thing that happens when we get to Bali is I have to like hike up straight up mountain stairs down to the beach with all these kids on my shoulders. Taz was just, I might as well have carried Taz too, you know, like
I was so gassed.
But it feels good to be able to do that, to throw my both kids on our shoulders and like hike up some like literally vertical stairs. And I think lacking that capacity as a parent, you're just like working at the fraction of what you're able to do. And I've loved this trip showing Oaks my physicality and Arrow too, like going out and doing flips off stuff, and yeah, it's been cool, and I've really loved the feeling, and I'm understanding how important training is and staying tip-top shape till I get older.
Nice.
What about you?
I agree. Well, I think we discussed this like a few days ago, chatting, just you and I, about how like we're constantly each other's space right now, and we go through days where we don't really talk because we're just with the kids all the time, and then sometimes when the kids go to bed we have to get work done, or we just sort of end up zoning out and being on our phones for a little bit before we go to bed, or so we're trying to come up with ways to be closer. And I think we're, how we just discussed, like trying to be just on a daily level like nicer to each other, and not that we're not nice to each other, but like being more loving and more like, for me, touching and saying like overly nice things to my spouse doesn't come naturally. I think they come a bit naturally to you. Right. So that's kind of what I'm thinking of right now, is just trying to just be nicer, like when I don't want to necessarily be.
I'm sure I will reap the benefit of that. Maybe sometimes, who knows if it'll happen.
But right now I'm so tired that like being nicer to you is like so far out of what I want to do. I just want to go to sleep.
We'll go to sleep and we'll get ready for the charging day we have tomorrow. Enjoy the podcast with Nick and Maya, and Booyakasha from Bali. So we're here in South Africa, guys, with Maya, Nick, and Nick's brother, who I can't remember his name. And Nick's brother is just going to be there. Try not to let him distract you with his ominous presence. You who are just listening to it are just going to feel his presence. You won't actually hear it. I mean, he might chime in occasionally, but he's side direction on the mic, so it's not going to pick shit up. I didn't tell him that, but he might chime in occasionally. But ladies on the YouTube version, I'm sorry.
You're welcome.
You're welcome, but I'm sorry because you won't be. You'll have to listen to this podcast 2 or 3 times to get any information from it. Anyway, yeah, we can jump in. So we're here with Nick and Maya. Nick and Maya, the Nick's the male, Maya's the female. And we're in South Africa, and these guys. Well, the way we start off the podcast, we say, why don't you say, like, if you were in a group of kids. Like, and you had to describe yourself, like, my name's Nick and I blah. Like, you could describe who you are, or what you do, or whatever it is. Like,
your hobbies, whatever.
What would that description be to a group of kids? Like, how would you take either your job or how you walk through the world and just deliver that to kids?
Jeez, talk about putting you on the spot.
Yeah, you can take as much time as you need.
Some people just jump into this and like, and I do finance, you know, like, and that's totally fine. Shit, like, if you think a kid's gonna understand, and I do finance, which is work with numbers, kids.
So, hi, I'm Nick, and I like to do fun stuff.
There we go. And what do you do though for work?
A little bit of this, a little bit of that.
No, but I'm actually genuinely asking you now. So, like, your job now is with trucking, right?
So it's management consulting,
right.
But for a business that operates in the commercial automotive space.
So
Commercial
kids are going to get that.
So that, I mean, and that's generally why Nick doesn't talk to kids in groups. Like, he's like, Maya, take this one.
That's
from
why
you.
I left that part out. Try to keep it simple.
And what about you, Maya?
I'm Maya, and I have 2 crazy kids who I now have the pleasure of looking after all day, who drive me crazy, but it's all good. I love it.
So you have 2 kids. Who are your 2 kids? What are their names and ages?
The oldest is Max, and he's turning 7. And then we have Alex, who is 2.5.
So Max and Alex, those are 2 androgynous names. 2 girls, right?
Yeah, it's actually Maximilian and Alexander. And a friend once said to us, "Are we raising the whole Roman Empire?" So we stuck with the theme.
I love it. I love it.
So if you had a 3rd kid, what would it be? What would the name be?
Sebastian.
Sebastian.
I don't know.
Because I would be blessed with 3 boys.
Oh yeah, no,
Yeah.
for the same for us.
So are you guys gonna have a 3rd kid? Because you said no, but I was talking to him today, and he was like, "Fuck, maybe. I like sex."
No, I think I'm done. I think I'm
With sex or
yeah, both emotion. Yeah.
both? Okay, we'll edit that out. We're starting this podcast early.
It's ended. That's it. It's like.
So you think you're done? Why would you be done?
We did quite a long trip with the kids in December, traveling, and it was quite emotionally draining. And I think because I'm with them full time now, I find it quite hard. And I don't know if there's enough of me to go around for a 3rd.
So what was emotionally draining about the trip with them? So like I haven't talked to you much about this trip, but like you get into this trip and you're going. This is the first trip with both the kids.
Yes.
And you went to the States.
Yeah.
For that trip, and how long was it?
A month.
So what? Can you pinpoint something about that trip that was like, okay, this aspect of it was really emotionally draining, or what?
I think it was full on. Every single day was full on. It was a very busy trip. So it was 2 weeks in Disney, 2 weeks skiing. So both of them are probably the 2 most planned holidays you would ever do in your life. So to do it back to back, every day you were doing something all the time, and I found it hard work.
Was that the nature of the trip? Or was that
I think it was the nature of the trip. Maybe. What do you think? Jump in.
Yeah, look, I think Disney was busy. There was a a plan of action for each day.
Scoot a little forward, Nick.
And
You got that deep baritone, but let's move that thing in there.
getting the kids ready every morning by a certain time, go all day, having them adjust to a day which is fairly rigorous for their age group, I think was challenging. But I think you learn a lot at the same time about the family and the family dynamics, and that's never a bad thing. You've got to take something away from it. Skiing, the kids adjusting from a summer climate into winter is a completely different ball game, like we were saying this morning.
It took Alex a week to realize if he didn't have gloves on, his hands would actually get cold.
Yes.
A week
Oaks is still
of every day sticking his hands in the snow and then screaming
Yeah.
his head off.
That's amazing.
Of
Oaks
realizing
did the same,
how they would get frozen. So it was like,
It's hard to put gloves on
Frustrating.
little kids though,
Well,
and
that's
have
it.
them stay on there.
and then we don't have that weather. So
Right.
it was completely foreign to them to get dressed and make it. Do you have your boots? Do you have your pants? Do you have your, your undershirt? Do you have your jacket? Do you have your beanie? Do you?
Yeah. So do you think it was like the day in and day out of what you're talking about, like getting the kids dressed, having to, let's have breakfast. Okay, now we've got to go and do activity number 1.
I think so.
Okay, does someone need a nap now? Or how are we going to get this nap done because we have to go to this next place?
And
then,
I think.
and then maybe also you guys are sorry, you go.
No, go.
What I was just going to say was like you guys are used to having a live-in nanny at home, so you guys went from her and you guys are very active with your kids. We've been here like 3 days and you're really involved with your kids. It's not like you're just hands off and your nanny does everything. She's kind of pottering around helping out where she's needed, but even that like tiny little bit of help, do you think
Absolutely.
that like made the
Makes a
difference
huge
for you
difference.
guys?
Yep.
Well,
Well, I think
it's like little things. I noticed it here. It's like we went off to the park today, and she was like moving around. This is their live-in nanny, Goldie, and she was moving around. And she like before we had said anything, she had got water bottles together and like a pack and all this other stuff. So it was like all we got to do as we leave the house is remember to grab the pack. And like you mentioned, hey, can you get some water? But she'd already done it, and it was like
Right.
I would think those little things would weigh tons on your consciousness because like as you go through life you're constantly putting those out of your brain because you no longer need to think about them. And not that it's a better or worse thing, but all of a sudden you go on a month-long trip and there's none of that. So like you're forgetting things because you're like shit that normally that's taken care of on like a micro level. Like
Yeah.
I imagine that would be a huge stressor. And not because you're like, oh, the help's not here. It's
Yeah.
more like it's just not part of your consciousness at this point.
Well, I think it was that, and then, so you need to get that stuff done. So what's the easy solution? Is we would stick them in front of the TV, like here's
and then
half
they
an
go
hour.
crazy.
You sit there while I'll make breakfast, pack the stuff, get the day ready, and then they're really wired. And then we go into Disney for the whole day, and then we
they're
come
wired.
back and we need to feed them. So sit in front of the TV again, and we'll get the dinner sorted. And then wondered why they didn't sleep at night, and why they were grumpy, and why they were, off their face most of the time. But it was our doing a lot of it, I think.
Look,
And
I
then
think
your
there's
tolerance
different types of travel, and
Yeah.
you've got to decide what works for you. I think the type of travel that we're referring to, where you've got an action-packed day every day and you want to make the most out of it, and you'll know firsthand that that's tough going because kids aren't used to being on the go all day, every day, different places, action, versus somewhere where you're going to Mauritius and lying on the beach or next to the pool all day. It's a very different
Right.
concept.
So like
But my nanny Taz, she does everything, and I just bring her with me everywhere I go. It's great.
Do you offer online courses?
No, but I think, and that's even stressful for me. So when Taz goes somewhere and like I have the kids, like I just find myself not doing stuff that's really simple stuff, simply because it's not usually in my frame of reference.
Right.
So like I'll leave the house
You're
and I'll be
behind
like,
the game.
cool, they don't have
Yeah.
shoes, and I'll be at the park when I realize that because Taz usually like, hey, you forgot their shoes. I couldn't imagine it being like a constant in your life and then having it be removed to that extreme. And then there's no help there for a month, like
Yeah, absolutely.
like you'd eventually
It's
make
definitely
do,
a game changer.
and
Yeah.
then having to travel on top of it, that would have been insane.
So do you think next time, like what would you change about next time? Because I'm sure like lots of, parents and families out there like who want to plan trips, like we get a lot of questions like, how do you travel with kids? And I think like basically what you said, there's like different types of trips, right? So you're either committing to like doing action-packed days, or maybe you're going and you're going to spend a couple of days chilling by the pool and letting the kids play, and then you have one day in between where you go and do an action-packed day. And like what would you change for next time?
Well, I think the one thing that we did probably do well with Disney was that we were there for 2 weeks. So we didn't have something on every day, which I think was almost life
Well, I think you've got to go one step back. I think
Yeah.
the first thing you've got to consider is the ages. So age plays a massive role. Whether you've got a 2-year-old or a 10-year-old, it's going to substantially change what you can achieve in any one day.
Right.
So I think you've got to consider the ages of the kids you're traveling with, and then plan accordingly. As you say, I think you've got to really consider what you can achieve as an adult versus something that you're going to do with a kid. Their attention span is going to be substantially shorter. They're going to need snacks. They're going to want rest breaks. They're going to need the bathroom. They're going to want to have a nap at some point. You've got to factor that all in. And I think if you temper your expectation and plan accordingly, I think part of the
Being
success
an
with
A-type
Disney
personality
was the planning phase. So you have a
was
very clear course of action for the day, and that works pretty well. And I think that's why the kids enjoyed it, and it was pretty successful. I mean, look, it was a lot of hard work for us, and for a lot of reasons, but including the ones that you've already highlighted. I think if you go prepared with expectations that are manageable, then it can actually be a great time, and really challenges the family dynamic in a good way. That you come away from there and you think, wow, it's a lifelong memory in many ways.
Totally. I think for me that I've on this trip even is realizing that you will be overstressed at times and not taking that out on my kids.
Yeah.
It's like getting these places where I'm either overstimulated or overstressed, or I've been like the kids been all day, and like it's really easy to look at something that they do as the thing that sets me off for it. And go back at them, and it's hard to be like, well, shit, it's not really their fault. Like
Absolutely.
I've put myself in this situation, but finding another outlet for that and not making it my spouse, I don't know. It's a hard. I think that's the hardest thing is like, because then all of a sudden we'll get into this big tiff. It's like fight for all you Americans. I think tiff is not an American word, but like. You go back and forth, like we rather than us get into a big fight, or we will get into a big fight, and we'll realize that it's like the fight doesn't really matter, but it's this built up stress, and it goes through all these things, and I don't know.
Yeah, I think that definitely is probably the hardest thing for our trip has been. Like, it's just that, I mean, I don't know if you guys found that traveling, like it definitely heightens, like, all those small things that bug you about the other person, because you're in each other's space a lot more than you would be at home. There's like no getting away from the other person, like and unless you talk about it openly all the time, it just ends up building up. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, kind of. Like, I mean, what was the fight we got into the other day? Like,
I don't
just
even
2
know
days ago.
what it was about.
We were getting into it.
We were just bickering. Like, he would say something and it would just really annoy me, and I'd be like, and then I was like, and then I felt like he was being really mean to me, and he didn't feel like he was being any different than he normally was. So I was actually oversensitive, and it was just like.
So and
then it basically came out that was like 5 days ago, and I'm like, well, actually, the way you do this really bothers me, and it's like nothing to do what we'd actually started talking about. And then he was like, yeah, well, this, and it was like, and then, so then we finally had the conversation that we should have had like a week ago.
Right.
And all of that could have been like resolved.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's an aside.
No, but it was good. It was a good fight.
Yeah.
Like, it was. You're saying this too harshly. You're receiving it too harshly. Like, what?
Put it back in perspective.
Yeah.
That's not. It sounds like you mean this, but I don't mean that. Shit.
And then it's going both ways too.
So then.
Yeah.
So that what we ended up doing is like, how could I do it differently in this situation? But then you have to get through the fight first.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you guys, I'm actually curious as to what your thought is on the live-in help. Like, do you think you guys, how should I say this? The live-in help is such a foreign entity for me. Like, having somebody in your house doing shit for you, and let alone being there with your kids. Does that build a certain, like, you guys both grew up with this, right?
Yeah.
So it was expected. Like, when you had kids, like, that's just what it was going to be. Like, you have somebody come help you with the kids. Did it ever cross your mind, like, let's not have someone? Like, let's just do this without help.
Well, you occasionally find yourself in that scenario,
Right.
when Goldie's sick, or she goes away. She's obviously got to have her leave every year, and then you get to sample that firsthand.
Right. So when you look at someone like us, like, you look at us and you go, they don't have help. Like, do you ever think about it and be like, oh, that's ridiculous? Or is it like, or you look at it and you're like,
All the time.
admirable, but I would never do that? Or like what's the thought?
I
Probably
use-
the best way of putting it.
Because the way I look at your guys' stuff is I'm like, that's really cool. That'd be helpful in a lot of times, you know. But I couldn't imagine having someone around that often. Like that weirds me out.
What
Like,
about if it was your like a family member? Would they
if
be
it
different?
would? Yes, if it was my grandma living in the
The unit.
unit.
Oh, really?
Like,
No, you see, I found that weird.
Oh, how funny.
right.
Yeah, like
But
that's
it meant if your grandma was helping out, like
Yeah. So I see.
I used to say I'd move anywhere in the world as long as my nanny could come with me.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate the help.
Yeah.
I do.
I mean, it's
No,
I really do.
But I think,
and I think
the important thing is
people
that
are
that person does become part of the family.
right.
And I mean, essentially, they are in your personal space in every respect. So you have to be able to trust them. You have to have the same type of relationship you'd have with any other person that would be in your inner circle, let's term it. Because of the access, they're going to be around your home all the time. You know, you've got to have similar values. They've got to be an integral part of the family for it to function properly. If that's not the case, it doesn't work.
Right.
No.
And we talked about this the other day about how humans have evolved to being literally growing up with the extended family, extended families, all living in the same space.
Yeah.
And then we've slowly started like moving away from each other, and like with travel being so easy, you know, I live away from my whole family, so it's just us, but we have your parents, but you know, a lot of people don't have that. It's just them, and now the, you know, nannies are basically, like you say, part of the family. It's kind of trying to go back to that, like it takes a village to raise
Raise a
kids,
child.
you know, and we're trying to do everything ourselves these days. I mean, probably because we can afford a nanny, because in where we live, it's not feasible to have a live-in nanny. But yeah, I think it's just everybody needs more help, and I think it's going back to kind of those roots.
That,
Well,
that,
that
being said, though, we've done a trip to Cape Town before for a good couple of days, and we took our nanny with us, and we didn't find it as enjoyable as we thought we would. Because
Right.
obviously a lot of South African families do travel overseas and travel different countries and cities with their nannies a lot.
Yeah.
And we did try it, but we didn't actually enjoy it. But granted, we went to family, so there was lots of other family who were then
Right.
around, who could help,
Right.
who were willing to be the hands, where we were like, you know, we would rethink that. So
Look, another part to it which you haven't really considered is, I mean, it's no secret that unemployment is excessively high here. It's almost 30%. It's about 27% at the moment. So, you know, every person or every family in this country that has an income level that can sustain employment of another person, whether it be assisting in your home, helping out in the garden, or anything like that, you have an obligation to some extent, in my opinion, to create that opportunity, because that one person could be supporting a whole another family, or maybe even two, and it makes a big difference to them to have that kind of income. And so I think you know, living in a country like this, you have a moral obligation to assist with that problem as much as you can. So by employing somebody, you get the benefit of the help, obviously, but at the same time, you're making a big difference in their community by giving them that income, and that goes a hang of a long way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I think that's, especially if you're treating them well, and like, I mean, the minimum wage thing is always trippy here, and I'm sure you guys pay your nannies significantly more than the basics, because from what I hear, the basic is like $1 an hour, and it's like, oh, crazy. What is it, 18 rand an hour?
The minimum wage.
I don't even
is-
know.
I wouldn't really be able to tell you.
I
to be
think
honest.
minimum wage is like 18 rand an hour, which like no one can actually live on that.
No.
It's not possible. So, and I assume you guys are doing that, but like, do you feel like that ever perpetuates like a continued separation, because like there's clearly a class system, right? There's clearly like a upper class and a lower class. Like, is there an out for these people other than working in someone's home?
Yeah.
Like, is there a route for
absolutely.
that?
Bussy, right?
Yeah.
She's a great
so
example.
our past maid from last year, she wanted to study further and finish her matric again, or her grade 12, I don't know what you call it,
Yeah.
to get higher marks to study further, and she wanted to be a business and go into accounting.
Awesome.
So we totally supported her with that, and we worked out a program, and she still comes and we give her help. And I mean, she's actually opened our eyes to a lot of projects that are being run in the city, with regards to sewing and skills and things that she now has become aware of, because she's working only a few hours, that she can actually now learn to sew, and then she goes and she teaches her sister, actually you must come with me and then you can learn to sew. And she wanted to do something more than just be a nanny, and she has. I don't think a lot of people do,
Yeah.
so I think
I'd
that
say
is
that's
probably
exception rather than
an
the rule.
exception.
Yeah.
But I think they want more for their kids.
Right.
So looking at Max's school, they have interns in their class, and most of them, I'd probably say 90% of them, are from previously disadvantaged backgrounds, and they run a program where it's called My Story. So each intern has an evening to explain to the parents where they came from, their history, their story, essentially. And most of them actually come from their parents were domestic workers, and the parents or the family then supported the kids' schooling, or their schooling, and wanted more, and the domestic worker wanted more for their kids. So not necessarily themselves, but these kids are now then get educated or move up, or so I think it's almost like a generational thing.
I was going to say, it's a time thing, right? Like from when we grew up and from when I was living here last, like so many things have changed, and it's looking like it's very easy for us to come back in and have these opinions that we see, but really we haven't been here for the last, I haven't been here for the last 20 so years. So it's just, these things take so much time to just like gather momentum.
And I'm not speaking about it negatively. It's just like
No.
it's
No,
a
no.
different perspective.
But
Like you
that
come in
being
and see
said,
it,
I
like,
think there's always going to be a need
Yeah,
for a nanny, for a gardener,
Right.
for a cleaner.
Yeah.
yeah, because we were talking about the other
As
day
people
about-
move up, people come up. You know.
Yeah.
I think.
But coming back to your question, Pat, I think, for us, the philosophy that we've employed with anybody that we bring into our home that works here, whether they're in the garden or, the nanny, is we want them to feel part of the family. And so it goes beyond just minimum pay. You want that person to live in a nice quarters. They must have a bathroom and a bedroom and a kitchen that's perhaps not as upmarket as your home, but is more than they would perhaps have themselves. So there's not this huge disparity where they've got a shack in the garden and you're living in this luxury mansion. And it goes down to the small things, the coffee that you drink, the lunch that you eat every day, all those type of things, extending those, shall we say, luxuries or privileges out to the people that work with you makes a huge difference to their lifestyle as well. So
absolutely, and I think that's probably the difference in how some people do it versus how you guys do it. Because I think it'd be really easy to make that a very clear separation rather than like a part of the family. And it's like, yeah, you have access to what we have. You're part of this whole thing. Your role just happens to be this. And be like, yeah, don't touch this section of the house. It's like, no.
No, there
absolutely.
are.
Yeah.
there are people.
That's what I'm saying.
There are
And
people.
now that I think would be the difference in making it be like part of the family or just a servant.
Yeah.
Switch subjects just a little bit because we kind of beat this one to death, but at the same time, it's always fun to talk about. And we talked about this a little bit yesterday, but correct me if I'm wrong, you guys both come a bit from wealth. Like your families have money. And you've grown up with money, and I'm curious as you raise your kids. I mean, you guys have money, and I don't know your exact financial situation, but this is a wonderful house, and you've got people living with you and working with you, and you're not hurting for money. So, what's the conversation that you're going to have with your kids about money, or is it even a conversation? Do you talk to them about like, hey, this is where money sits in the world, and this is what you should be striving for? Like, what is the relationship that you are going to give to your kids, or is it just going to like they just live their life and it's never comes up? Like, have you even thought about that?
I think it's a pretty good question, and I'm sure there's multiple answers for that. I think what's important to us is there's a few different lessons that you need to learn at the various ages, or certainly in my view. And I think the first one being the value of money, that we don't have money trees in the back garden. We'd love to, but we don't. And so that book that you just tore the page out of, we're not just going to go to the store and buy another one. You know, we need to fix that, and you need to learn that there's a reason why we work hard to have the lifestyle we do, and that comes at a price. You know, it's your time, or it's something that you're giving up to have that money. You want to spend it wisely. And how exactly you teach your kids that lesson or that wisdom, shall we say, is, I suppose there's multiple ways to do that, but I guess it's about talking to them about the consequences of their action, like in the example I just used, but at the same time that if they want to work towards something, that they need to earn it, they need to help around the house, they need to do chores, whatever the case might be, to learn that there's some form of sacrifice to achieve that ultimate goal, to go and buy that Lego set or whatever it is that they're interested in. And I guess it is like you highlighted. I mean, when you've got, you know, we all sit in a wealth bracket where there's not a hang of a lot that we want for, that we really need to survive on a daily basis. I mean, it's more aspirational.
I would say there's nothing that
living
in the bracket that we're in. There's nothing that we don't
exactly
get that we need
to live on a daily basis. Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, and the old saying that when you have it, you don't really worry about it. So it is something that I think is quite tough to teach the kids. But I think if you start at a young age and you teach them the value of money, and that they need to work towards certain things, and that they don't always get the best and exactly what they want when they want it, you can slowly start to build that foundation. And I think the key there is that it's a foundation. You've got to start young, like anything, manners, discipline. While the tree's young, you've got to bend it, and then, you know, as they grow up, you've got to continuously reinforce that as they get older. I mean, we haven't got to that age yet. I mean, where you've got to talk about cars and things like that. But yeah, I mean, certainly, I mean, our upbringing, we definitely didn't have fancy cars and things like that as students. We had something that was functional, and if you wanted something better, you worked hard. And
that being said, though, what our parents did give us was holidays.
Yeah, sure.
So which is something that we want to give our kids. So mom and dad work hard, and we have a certain work ethic, but with that means that we can spend time together and we can go on holidays together. And I think, I mean, in the last while, that's what we found more important than being able to buy things.
Do you think that might perpetuate the idea that in order that life should work in a way where you work really hard and then you go do the stuff you really want to do, then you work really hard, then you go do the stuff you want to do? So like, it creates this idea that life should be this, you've got your work
play,
and then you've got your play. And
no, I don't think so. I think that's an old school way of thinking. I think it's more about what Maya's saying is, you know, it's slightly off topic. It's more about where we see the priorities in spending the money that we have, you know, because we believe that travel's a great education. That's a privilege that we had as youngsters, and how that opens your minds to other cultures and all sorts of other things. It's not something that you can really get from a school or anywhere else, you know. It's just it's something you gain from experience. But I mean, coming back to the money thing, I think you know, it really is a tough one. I mean, what has your experience been?
No, I totally agree with you. I think that the traveling and investing in travel, exactly like you said, is 100% the best thing you could do for kids, because it provides that value in experience versus value in things, where it's like, we're not going to earn a bunch of money and give you a car. We're going to earn a bunch of money and then we're going to take you on this amazing experience. And you don't register that as a kid. And then later in life, all of a sudden, you're the type of person who wants to travel. And you realize how beautiful travel really is. Like myself, my parents never had that. We didn't have money ever, and so travel was out of the question. If we traveled, it was to drive grandma and grandpa's house 3.5 hours away. You know, like that was my experience of travel. So my whole life, I didn't need to travel. I didn't want to travel. I met her, and she's dragged me around the world many a time now, and I'm like flying to New Zealand and all this stuff. And travel is spectacular, and my brain has expanded so much in this short period of time, because I'm exposed to so many completely different things, and the value of it's massive. So I think that's probably one of the better things from an outside perspective that someone with money could do for their kids, is provide these opportunities, and to say, hey, the only way you're going to get to experience these opportunities is if you have the money to do it.
Absolutely.
And I think that's huge.
But I also think what you were saying about how, like, because your kids have everything and we have everything, it is really hard to provide those examples of like not having everything.
It is
because they do what we do. They're modeling fully off us, and if
Yes.
Dad wants a new camera, well, you know, he's probably
Gets a new camera.
Dad's probably going to go and buy a new camera.
Yeah.
You know, and but you know, there's no like, so the kids don't see anything before that. It's just like Dad didn't have the nice camera, now Dad has a nice camera, and there's no like, well, like there's no struggle or suffering, but like you say, but we need to instill that into them.
Yeah. It's a conscious.
That's exactly it. It's a conscious decision. You know, like
Right.
when you go to the
All
toy
the time.
store, it's easy to go and grab 5 different toys or 5 Lego sets or whatever it is that your kids are into. And I mean, let's face it, that's not a massive decision for any of us, but you've got to actually hold yourself back and say, okay, for Christmas we'll do this, for birthday if there's a special treat it'll be something, but it's going to be in this price range, and you've got to earn it to some degree, you know, because it doesn't come for free, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I wonder, I mean, it could be why, like, there's in America right now, there's a huge movement of people, like, moving into, like, tiny homes or living in RVs and basically just downsizing so that their kids experience living, like, a simple life. And some of it's to save money and so they can, you know, buy houses and stuff like that. But I wonder if that, like, if that works, if that will work, you know, like, I just...
Wasn't
yeah,
that part of like
We were-
having a balanced life, like having, you know, especially if you live in a city, I think a lot of people don't do it these days, but getting out to like the parks, going camping, things like that, teaches kids the basics. I mean, you were referring to you know, having a nanny and how that impacts on daily life. Go camping, there's no nanny there. You know, you gotta wash the dishes, you gotta make sure your clothes are folded, you gotta make your own bed, you gotta do all that stuff.
And I tell you, those weekends our kids love.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They love
like
it because
being
But
at the dam
they do
is-
learn
yeah.
that after
Yeah.
dinner, you know, you go and get the washing up tub and you walk across there, and guess what, you got to walk there, and you don't have
Right.
a bathroom off your bedroom either. You got to walk, you know,
right.
It's the
a couple
best.
of feet
It's
down.
the
But-
best.
but-
Yeah,
Like,
sure,
it's
it
like-
is. It's a great experience.
But you guys have that like balanced life, you know. Like I think you're
We're able to experience both ways quite easy.
exactly.
Yeah.
But these days, I mean, kids live in absolute luxury all day, every day. You know, you've
do.
got to make a conscious decision to say, okay,
To
you know what,
simplify
we're not going to buy that second house at the lake. We're gonna actually go camping, and we'll keep our boat there or whatever it is. But the kids are going to experience something beyond their daily life, which is a bit more rustic, and
Right.
what goes into, you know, the more basic life, which, let's face it, is reality for a lot of people.
Yeah. I have a question about like, so you guys really like traveling and you've started living more of a flexible lifestyle. Like you don't work a 9 to 5 technically anymore. And have you guys had like any pushback from like friends, family? Because it does seem like in South Africa, like the 9 to 5, you know, father working, mother at home, like it's still pretty, you know,
Common.
common here. How like,
That's pretty common everywhere. But
it's
like,
pretty common everywhere. I guess just coming here.
Yeah, it seems like the people we run into, like that's the game that they're in. It's like this is what we do. This is the culture around existence. You
Oh, really?
you go,
I
you get a
find
job.
I think it's the opposite. I think both parents work full time.
Right, and that
That's what we're saying.
Yeah.
Oh, is that what
Yeah.
you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I thought you meant
No, we're-
dad's at work, mom's at home.
No.
No,
Oh.
we're just
Not
just
even
like
that.
I think I phrased that
how you
incorrectly.
earn money or how you live life is you get a job,
Yeah.
you work a 9 to 5, you
Yep.
come home, you spend what little time you can on either end of those 9 to 5s, and you get your weekends
And
off.
we're
and you go
coming
on
from
holiday.
California, which is like, you know, a little bit of a bubble. and
Weird liberal mecca.
People are, you know, doing their own thing.
Bunch
and
of weirdos.
So, but yeah, I just wondered,
Well,
because I know
I-
we've had that
yeah.
conversation, Maya, like you chatting to people and
Well, I mean, when I was working full time, I mean, I think the mommy guilt is always a real thing when you're working, but I definitely felt more judged being a stay-at-home mom than I ever did as a full-time working mom.
Really?
And by friends, family, like people
And what-
that I never thought
and what are the
would have an issue with
conversations
it.
like that surround that? Like, so
Yeah.
how do people bring it up? Oh, you're staying at home
Well,
now.
no, they would say, they would stereotypical, I'm not one of those moms, Santon mommies who can stay at home and pick up my child from school every day. I'm like, I also have things to do. I don't just wait around all day to go and pick up my child from school.
Anyone who's looked after 2 children all
Yes.
day know that.
And then they're
that's
like, oh, no,
not
no,
the
no,
case.
no, I'm not talking about you. I'm like, no, but you are talking about me because I am a Santon stay-at-home mommy.
What's the term you're saying? Santon?
Santon's
The area, this area is like
Sorry.
the
Santon.
upmarket.
Yeah,
Um,
gotcha.
So, when I really do. I feel it's easier saying you're working. Sorry, I can't help out at school, or I can't do this. It's an easy excuse. I'm working. I don't need to be involved. And I think it's bullshit. When I was working full time, I mean, I had a very stressful job and I was working long hours. I made time to be at Max's school. I made time to do play dates. I did all that other stuff, and because of, I think, the working guilt. But now I feel worse being at home because of it. I really do, which is strange. I never thought that would happen.
And so now you're at home, Nick's not in an office, and you guys are wanting to travel more, and weekends you're going places, and how has that been received by like friends and family? They're like, well, what are you guys doing? Like, have you lost your mind? Or is it like this weird like new?
Nick's lost it. He's growing a beard. Gosh darn.
They find it strange. They really do find it weird.
Do they see how happy you guys are? Like, because you guys seem.
I'd like to think so, but I don't know if that's something that people comment on.
I don't know. What do you think, Stu?
You can
chime in here, Stu. You're the family.
I live the 9 to 5, so I'm a little bit jealous. No, I think it's great for you guys. You guys are really pursuing what you want. You've got a lot more time for your family. I know you're both very involved with your kids, and it's very rewarding for you both. So on a personal level, I'm very happy for you both. But the only reason I see people would be judgmental is because they're jealous, to be honest. There's no other reason anyone else could judge you other than being guilty for what they do.
The problem is that people don't see the sacrifice that you're making behind the scenes.
Right.
So we would choose a holiday over a second car.
Right. Yeah, you sold your
so
car
we consciously make that decision, but we know about the decision. Other people don't know. All they know is, oh, you've gone on another holiday, which. I
think coming back to what you were saying right in the beginning
No.
is, not doing the corporate 9 to 5, stereotypical employment scenario, and rather doing something that's a hang of a lot more flexible. It's like anything in life. There's pros and cons. So what I mean by that is that having us both at home all day, technically, even though I'm in the office working, is challenging. And that has its own set of pros and cons versus going to an office where you have a lot of freedom to do whatever you're doing, and you can go out for lunch and that type of thing. Whereas here you're around, so you're expected to fulfill certain responsibilities and things like that. Working in the afternoons when the kids are home from school, that can present its own set of challenges, as I'm sure you guys well know. So there's no golden egg, silver bullet, whatever it is that you want to term it, where it's just this happy place and everybody's doing great all the time. So I think going to an office all day certainly has its pros, but it has a lot of cons too. You don't have the flexibility, which is I think the main thing you were referring to, and that's if you have the opportunity to do it, I would highly recommend it to anybody.
Yeah, I don't understand how if you had the opportunity, you wouldn't. I think it's
also your attitude around it too.
But it's hard work for Nick and I to be at home together all the time, and it's okay. God, there's Goldie
And Goldie.
but we're in each other's space all day and all night, and that's quite hard. And I don't know if all relationships can do that.
I think you have to have been in the corporate space to understand the transition, in the sense that when you go to a corporate office, yes, you've got meetings, you've got work to get done, but you're effectively free in a lot of ways, because you don't have Maya phoning, hey, where are you, what are you doing, can you fetch the kids, can you do this, can you, go to the store and pick up something that we forgot to get yesterday. They expect you to be at work between 8 and 5. So what you do with that time is effectively your decision, When you change it all around, now all of a sudden you're at home, you've got those additional responsibilities, and adding on top of that, you're with each other all day, and you don't have a lot of outside stimulation in terms of people coming, unless you make a conscious effort to network and set up meetings and things like that. So, I think the picture isn't always as rosy as many people would think.
No,
but
not at all. I mean, I go away on two-day seminars. Like, I'll teach the weekend seminars, so I'll go and teach Saturday,
Goes and
Sunday.
sleeps in a hotel.
No, genuinely. I sleep in a hotel room. I sleep in the mornings.
Sleep 8 hours a night.
Yeah, it's wild how much easier it is to be away from the family than it is to be within the family, and it gives me that much more respect for my family, and I love my family, and it makes me miss them and stuff. Whereas I feel like that would be kind of ingrained into a 9 to 5 if you loved your kids. I know some people don't, which is a weird experience for me. But if you enjoy spending time with your kids, like every time you go to work, like you're doing your job, you're doing your thing, but it gives you this chance to build up that like, oh, I love my kids, I love my family, I can't wait to get home to see them. Whereas if you're always up in their shit, it's just like every little negative thing is weighing, it's never being cleared. It's never having that mental release of like, okay, I'm away from them, I can let go of that stuff, I just got to focus on my job.
Right.
So like people definitely don't see that. And it's something that if you have the opportunity to do, there's a very conscious effort to have times where you spend time for yourself, and that's something I'm working with Taz on. And that was part of one of our fights the other night. Was
That's
like,
right. Now I remember. Yeah.
I was like, I need you to do more for yourself. Like she always does stuff for me, but then resents and not intentionally resents the fact that she does stuff for me.
Pedicure today.
Yeah,
Well, but I forced her to do that.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and then she willingly chose to do it. But it was like she's needed that pedicure and that mama day for 3 months,
Yeah.
you know, or whatever it was. Like the
Wasn't just a
you know, the
pedicure.
pedicure. It was also waxing, guys. That's the air quotes that we're doing here. Anyway, but it required, because of the type of person she is, she's always going to do stuff for other people. And so she would do a whole bunch of stuff for me, but because of the type of person I am, I always do shit for myself. Like I always,
Well, at least you're honest.
I'm of course, like you have to be, like I'm always going to take care of me first. Like that's just how I am, and I try to think outside the box and like go for someone else, but that's always going to be as like, I'm going to take care of myself. Oh wait, never mind. I'm going to take care of them and then take care of myself. But I'm always going to take care of myself. Yeah. And she'll be the one where it's like, well, fuck it, I don't need to be taken care of. It's not that important. I'll just take care of this stuff. Yeah. And so if it doesn't fall in like immediate priority of like, hey, my finger's cut off, I need to go to the hospital, it's not going to get done. And then she'll build resentment towards me because she's taking care of me. And I'm like, hey, take care of yourself.
Yeah.
But then
it's true.
It's true.
But I think that needs to be a really conscious decision in a relationship like that is constantly in your each other's space, and you're working from home and you've got all that stuff, which is a totally different world than the letting go and go to corporate 9 to 5.
And look, the other big trap that you can fall into quite easily when you're around the kids all day and each other, you take that for granted, like anything in life. You know,
Right.
it's always there.
Yeah.
And so
I'm on my phone.
you don't
I'm
actually
already
you don't actually put in the quality time when you're working in 9 to 5. When you get home, you know you've only got an hour or two with the kids, so you put in quality time, and that counts.
Unless you're a dickhead and you shouldn't have had kids.
Yeah,
I'm serious.
absolutely.
Like if you work a 9 to 5 and you come home and don't spend time with your kids, you're a fucking dickhead. Like
Then you shouldn't have kids, but
I agree. And sorry, keep going though. You do have to.
No, that's just my point. That if you're around them all the time, you actually need to make a conscious effort to
Yeah.
say, "Hey, we're gonna go do something fun now," or give them
Right.
your full attention, put that phone down, whatever it is.
Yeah. Because, especially when you work for yourself, you can always be on the phone.
Yeah.
You just be like, oh, yeah, I'm just checking this email. It's cool. I'm just doing this thing. And it's like, well, you've kind of been at work for the last 48 hours.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's go ahead and click yourself.
Yeah, I think it's been transitional for us coming from. I mean, we don't have the kids weren't at school full time, but kind of like how Alex goes twice a week, right? To
It's 5 days a week.
Oh, does he?
Yeah.
I thought he went twice a week to preschool.
No.
Okay, but he finishes at like noon or something.
12.
Yeah. Okay, so
8:30 to 12.
So Arrow was going to school twice a week, and Oaks was like 3 to 4 times a week. And even those small snippets of time, like, and then Pat's mum would help us out like a few days a week here and there. We took those for granted too, because going from that to our trip, like kind of how you guys went on that holiday, it was kind of like, oh, okay, so we're in this, all right?
Yeah.
I mean, we'd done it. We went on a whole month road trip around America in our van, and that was like very close quarters. So we kind of knew what it was going to be like. But it is still a bit of a shock. Like, it's kind of like sometimes we just don't want to adult, Like, we're like, I just don't want to be an adult today. And it can last a whole day. And then the next day you're like, good, you're ready to go. But I think for us, we've had so many more positive experiences, would you say?
Yeah.
Like, we've almost gotten to the point where we're like, you know what? I think we can homeschool our kids. Like, before we were like, nope, I don't think we can do that. I don't think we have the ability or the resources or, but now I feel like we probably could
Totally.
homeschool them. And
Well, the thing is, I think it's a learning curve as well with anything. I mean, I think if we had to do another trip now, it wouldn't be so much more on what we're going to do, how we're going to do it.
Right, you
think,
adjust.
okay, well, how are the kids going to handle this? You know, you change your way of thinking because you've learned stuff along the way. So now you've experienced them all the time. Oh, actually, I can do this, or this is how I would think about doing it going forward. Hey?
Yeah, and if you plan a ski
And you
trip,
actually
just
forget
make
the
sure your
bad
kids are
things.
at least 3 years old. Then they can go to ski school all day.
Right.
Yeah. So
The crash that costs
Yeah.
$100 a day.
oh yeah, the I'm wondering, do you guys train? Like, do you guys go to the gym?
Yeah.
You do? How often?
I have a watch that I need to pay for. So that is the only reason I go to the gym.
Right.
Thanks, Stu.
So how often?
That was
Stuart
Stu's
made me
idea.
buy a watch
Okay.
with our health program.
Okay.
And then you've got to go to the gym and you've got to get your heart rate up to a certain
You've got to achieve
level.
a target.
You've got to
don't you?
achieve targets
Okay.
in order to get the watch free.
Yeah.
And that is my 100% motivating factor.
I love it. I mean, it doesn't matter.
I'm going
what
to
it
gym.
is.
Brilliant.
Gotcha.
That
And so
works,
how many
yeah.
days a week you go to
Three,
the
yeah.
gym?
3
days a week. And you?
3 to 4.
3 to 4. Okay.
But you cycle and, do
Do
other
other things. Yeah.
Yeah.
fitness type
Fitness
things.
stuff. Okay. So would you ever train together?
We go to gym together.
Yeah, we go to
Would
gym
you ever do the
together.
same training together?
No.
Why?
I don't know. It's not something we've consciously said, like, let's go and do the same program.
We once
or
tried a
anything.
mountain biking race together. That didn't work.
Why didn't that work?
Because he had to push me a lot.
Nice. Probably shouldn't jump
Maya's,
into a
like,
race.
Very, very happy to just compete and finish, and I'm,
He is a competitor.
I'm competitive, so I guess we have to match expectations.
Yeah.
You guys would thrive in a CrossFit facility because you can do you
Yeah.
and you can be competitive and both get a great workout at a different way. I think. I mean,
How did you just add this CrossFit
Yeah.
in there? Like,
Just
how did this?
stuck it in there.
Yeah, well, I thought you were gonna promote
This-
Yoked Fit or something.
yeah, this
You were-
is my market research for Yoked Fit. I'm curious as to why a couple who's active and
Well, you say that
goes
we're
to the
going
gym
to the gym
and-
together. We're in the car and we walk in,
Right.
and he does his workout and I do
Right.
mine. We meet, we have a smoothie, and we go home.
Right.
So what happens if someone gave you the workout to do together?
Yeah.
We
You know,
probably would.
like-
no, we definitely would.
It's not something. What I was
We've
trying to say
thought
earlier
about.
is it's not that we haven't said consciously
Yeah,
we're not
yeah.
going to work out together.
Yeah.
It's just something that
You just haven't.
yeah, you go to the gym, you
Right.
do whatever you want to do, and then
The ladies hit the
thing.
cardio machines and the guys hit the weights machines, and there's no compromise in between in this country. It's just like those are the rules, and that's what everybody does.
Unless
you
you go to
definitely,
CrossFit gym.
definitely probably should stick to those rules, huh? Seems like it's working for your country. Moving on. You have, I mean, we were talking about this the other day, and you actually mentioned it even in this little bit. You were brought up with a very, was it logical father? Very stoic, like, not stoic, but like everything's rationalized, right? And maybe you weren't brought up with a father who's like that, but you guys are both like that. Like, that's how you view the world. It's like, fuck, you don't like it, you don't like it. I don't care. Like, you got to do this. This is how stuff happens. And it's a very like linear process through thought and logic, and this is how this works. Have you ever stopped and looked at it and been like, what's the failings of this system, and how can I not build these failings into the kid, but still build the positive sides of maybe a logical system into a child?
that's a good point. I think if you are able to do that, you can achieve a hang of a lot in terms of the experience growing up.
Able to do what?
Well, I mean, essentially what you're looking at is your shortcomings and saying, how do I, in some way not pass on those same preconceived ideas or whatever it is, that methodologies, whatever you want to term it, to someone else, and let them make up their own mind as to how they want to view things or see it based on their character and personality. I think that's a lot easier to do in theory than practice. But I don't think I've consciously sat back and said, this is something that I don't want my kids to be. I think I'm a fairly good role model, although I suppose every dad would say that, every mom would say that. I mean, the only thing I think I can really say is my competitive streak, because in our eldest son, he's got quite a healthy dose of that in his genes, and I think you can see in him that coming through, and I mean it's great because it gives him confidence and things like that, but it's also got a negative side because he has to learn how to lose sometimes, and he has to realize that not everything is a competition. You can do a lot of things for fun, like the kids playing in the pool today. Sometimes it's fun just to get the markers off the bottom and not always have to count the points or see who can do it the fastest or whatever it is. So but beyond that I can't really give any specific examples. I think it would be quite beneficial though.
Well, let's just think about it then. So, let's think about logic as a system. So, of going through the world, I think it's problem solving, right? You look at a situation, you go, okay, what are the factors? What would be the logical outcome? Let's manipulate these factors to get the result that I want. And my brain works the exact same way. So, if we have a system that's constantly like that, and we always act like that, what are the failings of that system? From my experience, the failings of the system is emotion doesn't play a role in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you meet people who are not coming from that place, your ability to deal with that situation doesn't exist. So you fail as a human. So
or the outcome is completely different to what you expect.
Exactly. So you're like, wait, what? How did that happen? And then I don't know. I'd urge you to look at it. Look at a situation that happens with your kid, like Max, where he does something that is completely illogical, and rather than teach him the logic of that situation, be like, how can I respond to this in a non-logical way to see maybe where, what because there's no reason that fucking kid just hit the window with the bat, he just did it. He walked up and he did it, and he doesn't need to be told that it was illogical because he knows it was illogical. He just did it, and it's like there's a bigger picture here. And I think my personal shortcomings are the same. Whereas I'm gonna go right to the factor and be like, what the fuck were you thinking? Yeah. Look at what happened here, rather than just be like, there's a bigger piece. There's something outside you hitting this bat that I missed.
That being said, I think you are amazing with that.
Me?
Yeah.
Personally?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
I definitely
Absolutely,
think that you
yeah.
take that step and you look at it through different eyes.
Thank you.
I mean, I've learned a lot from the way that you do that in the last couple of days. I would automatically jump in and be like, what are you doing? How did you do that? Whereas you would definitely take that breath, think about it, and then go, okay, so let's see what's going on here. What happened? You tell me what happened. And I've definitely taken note of that and think it's amazing.
Well, thank you.
And it's not something I think we've discussed yet, but it's definitely a way of doing it. And it's looking, from the other side or the kid's point of view or a different angle completely. But the way that you then interact with your child from a situation, or that you've interacted with my kids, is very different. And I think it's been effective. Hey?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think if there's one leaf we could take out of the book, that
Just
would
one.
be it.
Just the rest of them, all the penis. You don't want all the penis jokes.
Let's not even get on.
Bring those penis jokes in there. I just know because I look at the world the same way you do, and that was one of the hugest factors for me with the kids it was more with my relationship with Taz. That was where I learned that. And we spoke about that earlier. Is that's where it happened. Where I was like, I can't deal with all these situations logically because we're working from a different set of skills.
It definitely still happens.
It happens all the time. It happens all the time where my initial reaction is like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Yeah.
Oh wait, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Or listen, the reason you're crying right now is because you did this.
Yeah.
It's like I can't have that. That has to go, even though that's what I want to do.
Because that's what logic tells you.
Because that's what logic is. It's like, dude, you
Because I'm
stepped
trying
on
to-
the end of a rake and it whacked you in the face. That's what happens
Yeah.
when you step on rakes. And I
Yeah.
have to first be like, hey man, are you okay?
Yeah, whereas I'm
And
the
then
opposite.
after the fact,
I
you're
don't,
like,
I don't
Yeah.
think of it like that. My first thing, my heart goes to the child first.
right.
Like, I'm
Because you're way more emotional.
concerned
Yeah.
about how
That's the
they're feeling.
big difference.
Yeah.
Because I'm not concerned. When a kid
Yeah,
hurts
he
themselves,
doesn't care.
it does nothing in my brain. It doesn't set off an alarm of the kid's crying. I should see if he's okay. It has to be a conscious effort because a second a kid hurts himself, I have no response. No empathetic, oh, they're
We
hurting
did
themselves.
fly our child off a tube
Yes.
yesterday.
Very
I-
fast.
very, very fast. But
That's
no,
off the topic.
yeah, no, that's on topic because I look back at it, I'm like, bah, but then I have to be like, okay, I just terrified the shit out of that kid. He could forever fear tubes, because of what I just did. how can I connect with him in a way that he now loves the tube and will get back in the tube again? But it's definitely it's a thought process, not a response. Because I know my immediate response is to just be like, why did that just happen? Look what you just did to yourself. Like, I don't know. Yeah. If I could offer you one thing as another logical person, it would be to think about that.
That's a great tip.
Why aren't you eating that chocolate?
I'm saving it.
Is it because of the gym comment?
Must be nice. I've been like watching
Yeah,
you like rolling it in your hand. I'm like, it's been nice and warm by now.
What do you think is your favorite part about living in South Africa? Like, if you could think about, because you guys born and raised here, right?
Yeah.
But you've traveled quite a bit. If I want to know, like, what's your thing that keeps you in South Africa? Like, why do you continue to stay here?
I think the outdoor lifestyle is a big part of it. But beyond that, the culture and the people here are, like any country, I guess, unlike anything you'll find anywhere else in the world. And I mean, there has been a lot of adversity in the country in recent history. So I think in some ways, while that's obviously had a lot of negative impacts, but in some ways that's brought the whole country together, the last 20 years. And that's something that we haven't seen anywhere else. And I think being part of that community and feeling that you're part of a bigger movement is a big part of life, So being South African and living in South Africa, I think is a great opportunity. It does come at a price, obviously, but yeah, it's just something we enjoy. And I think the culture is similar to other countries in some ways, but it also has a lot of unique elements. If you've ever been here, you would know that, and for that reason, it's hard to replicate. So I think.
Well, I think if you had to be comparable, I think we enjoy the lifestyle.
Yeah,
Such a good
certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Comparatively so much
Yeah.
less.
I mean, we've been here nearly 8 weeks. It doesn't feel like that, and we could probably just stay here.
Yeah, for the rest of our trip. South Africa has a fantastic lifestyle. The weather,
Yeah.
Well, that's
like
it.
you're
It's
saying,
the
the
weather,
people,
it's
the
what
food,
you do,
the location.
Yeah,
like
everything.
it's okay. I agree with you. You win this round.
Yeah. It's we you put up with stuff. You understand that you're not naive to the fact, but there is a lot of good stuff, and I mean, we'll be pushed out to leave.
I feel like the people that we've seen on this trip or hung out with or associated with are like really positive people and positive about the country and positive about like it moving forward, and I'm not really sure where my point was going with
But
that,
politics is politics. I think every
Yeah.
country is going to have some sort of politics, and I'm not saying that ours is any better because we won't start.
I'm not saying that
the-
ours is. I was like, no. Let's not talk about that. Let's pull that off the table.
But I mean, if you were to compare to like Australia, New Zealand, and things, I mean, we often compare. You had the tall poppy syndrome. I mean, over there, like here, you are encouraged to thrive. You're encouraged to be an entrepreneur. You're encouraged to work for yourself. You're encouraged to do well.
But you say that, but then it seems like when you are one of those people like tall poppy syndrome in New Zealand, like you kind of get pushed back down.
Whereas you don't, yeah.
Right.
Hey?
You
No.
get
No.
pushed up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Further
Yeah.
and further.
Good for you. I want to read your book.
That's awesome.
I want to be like you. Show me how you did that.
That's great.
And I think it's probably because we come from a culture where you have to be an entrepreneur. Also, it's not. Hey, I don't know. You guys are more into it than me.
I think it's just kind of built into the culture.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be an
Achieve.
entrepreneur. I think a lot of people just don't have the guts to take the step, to move in that direction, because that is a big leap, especially if you come from a corporate background. But yeah, beyond that, I think you can't fault the lifestyle. I think that's why we're here.
Fair enough. If you could look at Nick and take one of his traits out of your son, so he doesn't have it growing up, which one would it
Oh
be?
my word, there's so many.
So what's the thing that you would look at Max and Alex and be like, I hope they don't have this? And why don't you think of the one that you want to remove from her?
Christian book.
I've actually got a good one for Nick.
Hey!
We'll do yours first.
That's.
How about communication? What about his communication skills? Do you like his communication skills?
I think you can push him. You can push both of them to a point, and then it's just gone. Like, but I don't know if Max gets that from you or from me, being an Aries.
Oh no, I'm
Both
not saying
fine.
it's something that Max currently has. So like
Just
something that
something
Nick
Nick
has
has.
that you would hope that Max doesn't have.
That Max.
Because this is more a comment on Nick.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a hard one. Can we start with him?
Sure. Do you have something?
Maya can tend to go against the grain.
Sounds really positive.
Maybe purely to go against the grain?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
clearly be difficult in some circumstances, and I think even her mom recognizes that from her childhood in that she can.
But that
be.
is our child, so you can't actually take that out of him
So I think if there was
because
one
it's already
thing
there.
that I think is going to give us grey hairs, it's probably going to be that.
But then that comes just back to like what we were talking about before, like this afternoon, just like how you deal with that,
Yeah.
right? Because that's a really great attribute, I think.
As long as it's contextualized.
Exactly.
As long as the kid understands the appropriate times, yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that one's vetoed. What else?
No, it's not
I'm
vetoed. I think it's
joking.
good.
I'm
think
just
that's
sticking up
good.
for Maya.
I,
We've been friends for 30 years. Come
Oh,
on.
fair.
Yeah.
No, the only reason I bring it up, and like, I actually have never done this in one of the other podcasts.
Yeah,
because
this is
I,
new. We've never done
I think it's you get so, especially in a relationship where you're in each other's space all the time. It's like you just let little things go all the time.
Yeah.
And then eventually a little thing kind of builds up to a bigger thing. It's like, how often do you sit down and you just go like, you know what, shit, like, I sure hope the kid doesn't have this of you.
What would mine be? What would you be?
Yeah.
If I looked at you and said one trait that I would not want the kids to have, your face you do in photos, mainly that one. No, let me think
That
about
would be a good one. I
Let me-
think that we could
My
definitely
fake smile.
apply.
Yeah,
Maya's fake smile.
Have you seen Oaks' smile in
Oh my
photos?
gosh.
It's so bad.
Yes, I
Like,
have.
smile, Oaks. He's like, no, don't smile. You know what? Hey, look sad. Look sad, bro. It's just not a
it's
good.
bad.
I mean, he's such a good-looking
It's
kid.
because when
Yeah.
he was so little, we used to say, Oaksy say cheese. So he'd go, cheese!
Yeah.
And now he still does it, but now his face isn't cute and little anymore. It's like, oh.
Let me see. If I would have him remove one trait from you, it would probably be what we talked about the other day. Is I want them to make sure that they're taken care of before they look to take care of other people.
Right.
Because I think that's a really important trait as you move through life. Is like you have to be able to take care of yourself, and you have to make sure that you're okay before other people are okay. It's like
Right.
that fucking airplane thing. When the thing drops down,
Yeah.
you don't put it on the other person first. You breathe.
Yeah.
Like to a certain extent.
Which goes
before.
against everything you want to do as a
absolutely.
parent.
You will there will
Hang
not
on
be
there,
a
just
mom
like-
putting her mask on before her child. I'm
All these
telling you
moms
that
are
now.
blacked out
Yeah,
on the plane.
yeah.
The
They'll
dads
die
are like,
before they.
you
Yeah,
guys do it. Like,
yeah, totally.
but I would say that would be one of the traits.
Oh, yeah.
And then now what's yours? For me. Give it to me.
Like it just happens to be off the top of my head.
I thought about it.
Is like the 0 to 100, like anger,
Yeah.
like response to Oaks. Like you guys, you know, I mean, I'm not saying he's putting on a good show, but like he occasionally will just have this like response, and it's just like you can see it in Oaks' face. He goes from being like, "What have I done?" to like absolutely terrified, and it makes like kills me inside to watch Oaks' face when Pat like yells at him like that. It's like when you're a kid, like I can still remember moments like that when my parents
Yeah,
would
me
yell
too.
at me, and I'm 35, you know, like, and they were the most awful moments of my life because you've got these two people that you love more than anything in the world, especially as a 5-year-old, and then they're just like yelling at you for throwing a frog or whatever, you
Yeah.
know. That would be it,
I think
agree.
that's what I was meaning about the fiery, like just the snap.
right?
Yeah.
You can push and push and push, like, Dad, can I do this? Dad, can I do this? Dad, can I do this?
And then
Dad?
it's
And
just
then
like-
it's just loses it.
Yeah.
And it's like, didn't really need to get to that point.
Right.
Yeah.
You could have dealt with this differently. And I think it's because, and when you say you remember that as a child, my dad,
Yeah.
I knew exactly how far I could push him. And then when he snapped, oh my God.
Yeah.
You close your eyes and you go to bed.
Right.
And that was it.
Or you
There was
get a
no argument.
smack on
Yeah.
the butt. But
Um,
yeah, Pat gets it from his dad actually too.
Yeah. My dad's like a chill stoner,
like super chill.
and then all of a
Nicest
sudden,
guy you'll ever meet.
and all of a sudden, like, just when he lost it, it was like, what the hell? Like, where did that come from? But he brought up a good point when I brought, because I look at that when that happens, and what she's saying, when it devastates Oaks and it devastates her when she sees it, it devastates me just as much. Like, when I see my son break down because I turned and yelled at him in a way that, like, caused him to break inside, that like, I'd be a fucking asshole if I didn't, like, look at that and go, wow, you're a dick, man. You need to apologize to myself, you know, and go over and say sorry. And it's far less than it ever has been.
Sure.
Like,
but I think that's the difference between like you doing it and like our parents' generation. There was never that going back saying, "Hey, I'm sorry. I should not have spoken to you like that." Which is what you do and what we do. We, you know, like then, and so then hopefully they're not going to remember like that moment as being super negative.
As to being, well, maybe
You know.
they just know. My dad brought up the point that, like, you should know that your dad can go there. You should know that your dad has, or like the male role model has that like power, like, and I mean, I think the female role model should have it as well. As like, human beings should know that it's possible to go to that place of like, hey, this is out of bounds, and you stepped off the line. But it I don't think that should be the way you raise your kid.
Right.
It just needs to know that it can exist, and there needs to be context built around that. And I'm pretty sure he'll still remember the time that I popped his fucking balloon.
Oh my! I was just thinking of that.
Like there's this time.
Popped like.
So Oaks is playing with Arrow's balloon, and Arrow had his balloon. He was hitting it all around.
It was Oaks' birthday, so you know.
Oaks' birthday.
So it's
Oaks
about him.
pops Arrow's balloon. And then, so his balloon's popped, and it was like, whatever. And so Oaks is letting Arrow play with his balloon. And then Oaks starts being a dick and not letting Arrow play with his balloon. And he's being really mean to Arrow. And Arrow's crying, all this other stuff. And I was like...
Give me the balloon.
I was like, give me the balloon, man. And I took the balloon away from him. And he rears back, and he just kicked me. Like, just no... Like, and out of anger. It was like, I took his balloon, he looks at me, rears back, and just kicks me. And I'm holding his balloon, this, like, birthday balloon that he had. And I just looked at him and just went, BAM! And just fucking shattered his balloon right in his face.
The only balloon left in the house.
Only balloon. We had 100 balloons. This is the last one. Just BAM! And I'm looking at him right in the eye, and his face goes from, like, defiant to just breaks inside. And, like, everything shatters, and he's just
And the first thing that comes
tears.
out of his mouth is, "This is the worst birthday of my life."
No,
but
not
he's only
like
had
no,
like 5.
No, she said it like this is the worst birthday of my life. Like, oh, I've still got some anger in me. It wasn't that. It was sobbing.
He was crying.
Losing it. Like, this is
Yeah, he was
worst
genuine.
birthday. And I was
It
like,
I nearly cried.
you fucking dick, Pat. Like, what are you thinking? Like, that was how you chose to deal with that situation? Good call,
And the thing is,
man.
like, because Oaks has seen it, so that was how he dealt with it. His first response was to kick Pat because he was angry.
Right.
So it's like,
that's a fair enough thing to want to remove from our children.
That's a good point, though.
It's yeah.
And I think some of it is innate in Oaks, like that's his MO, like to get angry and want to, like, because he's a boy and he has like a lot of energy. But it's definitely perpetuated by what he's seen happen. But
You running to the bathroom.
I don't know.
He's going to get his book. Check his notes.
Oh, we have this book, this little book of questions. That's probably what he's getting, and we always just open it up to like a random page and ask this random question and just discuss it. It's really cool. It's literally called the Book of Questions. Like, some of the questions have been pretty heavy.
So we do the question book.
Yeah,
just random. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Many people are capable of being good runners, but to be world class, you need specific variants of key genes. If you were the best runner in your area and really wanted to win Olympic gold medal, would you first check your genes? If so, what if you found out you didn't have the right ones?
Oh, what a strange question. So different to any of the other questions we've had.
No, I wouldn't check my genes.
Why?
Because if you're going to do it, it's more of a mental game than a physical game. Is that the totally wrong answer?
No.
Your face is like...
I don't think there's an answer.
The point is this: there is no right answer.
no.
So, like, what's your reasoning behind not checking your genes? Because it's saying that, like, to truly be one of the greats in the world, you have to have a certain set of genes. So why wouldn't you check your genes?
Well, I think it's more about
The
asking
mental-
you, the question of whether you could have that niggling doubt in the back of your mind if you knew that question existed and that having good genes would make a substantial difference. And having that question unanswered, when you're attacking this marathon goal, like going to the Olympics and winning gold, could you have it in the back of your mind saying, I don't know the answer to that?
Well, that's the question. Could you?
Yeah, I think I could.
Would you check yours?
No.
I wouldn't check mine either.
Right. I like your reason. How about you?
Yeah.
You check your genes?
Yeah. It wouldn't make a difference.
Right.
So
I'd
even
check
if
it.
you knew you didn't have them,
Yeah, I
you
wouldn't care. I'd
Yeah.
still try anyway.
I
Yeah.
would.
See, I wouldn't.
Right.
But that's
Which is why
different,
you
right?
wouldn't check.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm
Well, that's why I
competitive
wouldn't.
and you're
That's
not.
but that's why I wouldn't check.
Yeah, because then
Because
your
I would-
competitive
I
streak
would-
kicks in and you're like, well,
And then
I'm
you're
going
like,
to show
well,
them.
screw
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That'll
See,
give me like
where
the
it would-
motivation to want to do it even more.
Yeah. I wouldn't check, but mainly because I think that a study like that is fucking bullshit.
I know.
Like,
Well,
because the factors that are built
hey,
into
don't be like I'm the better person.
No,
Answer
no.
the question, like.
That's what I'm saying.
But you're saying like if it is true, like would you?
It's not
check?
saying that it is. It's not saying if it is true. It's saying many people are being capable, but to be world class, you need speed-specific key genes.
Right. So
It's saying you
that
need
you
that.
need them.
No, it's saying that this is saying that you need it.
Right.
And
So
I'm
you
saying
need-
that I don't believe this.
Okay, just like in the hypothetical world, if you do need them, what would you do?
That's not what this question's asking.
You're not playing the game.
I am playing the game.
No, you're trying to do a workaround to make things easier because that's what you do.
Make life easier? Yeah,
Yes.
sure. What do you, I don't know what you're
Pretend
saying.
that this saying that you have to have a variance of key genes for you to be the fastest runner in the world. Would you want to know or not want to know if you had those?
Yeah, I'd want to know.
So you would test.
Yeah, but then that defeats your question too. Because it's
do you
saying that defeats your answer. Because your answer was that you would test, and even if it said you wouldn't, you would keep going.
Yeah.
And then you'd say, you're keeping going knowing you will never be that.
But going to the I'm still going to try.
But you can't do it. Based off of your interpretation of this question,
Right.
you're saying that you would try to be an Olympian knowing for a fact you could not do
I
it.
could still be an Olympian. I
No, you
might
couldn't.
not be able to win an Olympic gold medal.
Exactly. So
Right.
you're saying knowing you couldn't win an Olympic gold medal, you would do it. You would still try to win.
Yeah, because I've always
an
wanted to
Olympic
go
gold
to the
medal.
Olympics, so I would still want to
But it's
just
not
get to the Olympics.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
I think you bended the question
I
for
feel like that's
for
what
me.
you did.
No, I did not.
I have to agree with Taz.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I'm with Taz.
Yes.
Taz, you guys are all fucking wrong. Like, let's just,
4 versus 1.
yeah, odds are good in my favor.
It's been a long
Come on,
night.
just let
Okay.
her have it, man. Just let
All
her
right,
have it.
fine.
Okay, one more.
If it was answered like that, then no. Yes, I would get my genetics tested. And then if it said I couldn't be an Olympic runner, I would say
Okay, it won't be one.
I will not be a runner.
Yeah.
I'm signing up for swimming.
Yeah, like let me swim. Yeah, okay, that's what I would do. And then last question. Do you want to answer it? Or ask it.
So we always ask this question at the end. So if you guys could go back to your pre-children self, so like when you were pregnant with Max, what would be the one thing that you would tell yourself as becoming a parent?
And it's not like what would you tell any parent. It's like what
You-
would you say to you?
specifically? Like, so for example, like my one was, I would tell myself that it gets easier. Like every milestone, like every 6 months, like it gets easier. It gets easier. Like it's not. I've done this like so many times. It's not like having the first child. No.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You get
I
what
would
I'm saying.
tell myself to chill out more. To just relax and don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah, I think enjoy every single minute. That's something that
You can't choose mine.
He's expanding
Maya's
on it.
uncle actually told me, and he said, you know what, you do tend to sweat the small stuff, but he's like, when you're actually in it, it feels like an eternity, especially that first year, and especially with the first kid. But the reality is it actually goes very quickly. I mean, look at the last 7 years, how fast that's gone. And you actually need to make an effort every day to take a moment away to say, you know what, I've made an effort, I've enjoyed something, this is what it was. Because otherwise, before you know it, they're out of the house and on with their own lives. And
Totally.
And that comes quicker than you think.
Yeah, we had a member of ours at the gym. I still think about it every time I do this. He was like, really great guy. He said, I have one tip for you. Just don't try and rush them into the car. Like, it was just like this one thing. He was like, don't make them get in the car seat really quickly. I was like, that was a weird thing. But we do it all the time. Get in the car, and I think it was just more of a metaphor for like
Don't rush it.
parenting.
Yeah.
It was just like, don't.
There's gonna be a time where you don't put him in a car seat,
Exactly.
and you're
gonna
never
disappear.
gonna put him in a car seat again. Every time you put him in the car seat, that's that opportunity for them to like slide that shoulder. Fuck, I don't even remember you ever saying that. I've
It was
never
Bill.
heard that.
Bill Chiocci
Yeah,
told
but
me
I've
that.
never heard that
Really?
saying from you.
Yeah, I think
Thanks
about
for
it.
holding that to yourself. Work on your damn communication.
It's going to share that pearl of wisdom right at the
Yeah,
end.
yeah. I'm like in my deathbed. Oh shit! I rushed them.
But yeah, that was really cool.
That is a good one. I still was that related exactly to that was we got a card right before the first kid before Oaks from actually my little brother John G's fiance's mom, and it said it was like just this like artsy card, and on the front of it says like the days are long but the years are short, and I was like, the hell does that mean? And then I had a kid, and it was like a year later. I was like, what?
Yeah.
What the hell just happened? It's like that was so miserable and so long the entire time I was going through it, and then blink and a year went by, and you're like, oh, that's the card. It's the card. The card's a real card, So I feel you there. Yeah, that's it. That's all we got. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for listening to the show, and if you wouldn't mind heading on over to iTunes, giving us a rating, and also writing maybe a little review, telling people about the show, as well as checking out our sponsors, Perkia Rings, as well as Cat and Cloud Coffee. That's Perkia, Pyrkia. Use the code TRIBELIFE for a little discount. And if you want to go to Cat and Cloud Coffee, that's CATANDCLOUD, so Cat and Cloud Coffee, and put that in the old Google machine, pull it up, and choose anything in their store. Use code BARBERSHOP, and you can get 10% off anything in the store. All right, thank you guys. Have a wonderful day or night, wherever you're at right now.